Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Rock City Trio. I'm Adam.
I am Tim.
I'm Catherine.
And this week, we're talking about why we feel like everyone is just so interested in serial killers and murder and death and the macabre in general.
Yes. Why are we as a society so intrigued by these things?
I have no fucking clue, but I'm totally into serial killers.
Yes.
I have a huge crush on Ted Bundy. I really don't. He's really fucking ugly.
Okay, I was going to say, that's the first thing that's got to be talked about then. But
What are you looking at?
Matilda is just playing with her little like rat mouse toy right by all the power cables. It's
Shall
fine.
I move it for her?
No, she got it away from it for now.
Yeah. But she was literally on top of the power strip, and I was just waiting for her to step on
Like the switch?
the switch. Yeah.
She just brought it back to the main area of the room. So
Got it. Good job, Matilda. You're so smart.
So, as culturally speaking, I'm not sure if this is the way it is across the entire planet or if it's just an American thing. But
Different universes.
yeah, it's
space.
like Orion's Belt,
Final
this and
Frontier.
that, the
Space.
sun.
Plague.
But we have a plethora of new material on serial killers, fictional and nonfiction. So we have documentaries. We have we now have the Jeffrey Dahmer movie. We watched the one My Friend Dahmer like 6 months ago. It wasn't very good. I mean, it was good, well acted and whatever, but they didn't really get into the killings, which I think was actually kind of a nice thing because
That's
they
what I was
didn't
going to say.
glorify.
This is what I was going to talk about. We probably didn't like it because they didn't show any of the killings.
Right.
Or they didn't talk about any of the victims or how he killed anybody. Like,
Right. It was his life right before it.
that we don't give a fuck about. We don't give a fuck about that. They did the same thing with the Ted Bundy movie with Zac Efron.
That movie didn't seem like it was good.
Wait,
I only
so-
saw the second half.
So you're saying what they did is like they focused on basically the leading up to it, kind of what changed it, like what psychology did to drive him to that point? Because if so, that's fascinating to me. But
No, not even that.
Oh.
If they did that, sure, it probably would have been good. But it was really
Well-
just like, here's a snippet of Jeffrey Dahmer as like a 17-year-old, because that's kind of what it all started.
My Friend Dahmer is based off of a graphic novel, by the way.
okay,
So I don't know if it's entirely fictional because I am a psychopath and have watched every fucking documentary known to man on John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, you name it. Because the stuff fascinates me. As the listeners, I was originally going to go to school for criminal psychology. So this stuff has always fascinated me. But in regards to how he got to be the way that he is, it was more of a psychological approach, kind of watching him unwind, I think. But there's no answers because clearly there are no answers.
right.
As far as the Ted Bundy movie, I don't really know because I only saw the second half. But it seemed like it was a play-by-play of actual footage
Yes.
in the second half, which I think is the appropriate way to do it, to be honest, because it's not glorifying anything. It's not making it Hollywood.
It's like documenting it.
It's more like it's being cautious and making sure that people aren't offended, and making sure that the victims are. I mean, and then they had the list of all the victims afterwards. So I think it was a very true depiction of what happened.
It's not really putting a spin on it. It's letting
Right.
it speak for itself in its own negative way.
Yes, I do agree with that. So I was talking to my coworker and my friend Erica, and I watched it and I said, "Have you seen this yet?" And she said no. So she started watching it. Again, kind of the same reason why I didn't really like My Friend Dahmer is because they didn't talk about any of the killings. And I don't
Right.
know why I want that so badly, but that's a whole thing in itself. But it was, looking back, she was talking about it. She goes, it really does show how much people really don't realize who's in front of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That like they painted this picture that if you went in totally blind, had no idea who Ted Bundy was, had no idea about all the crazy shit that he did, you would have thought he was innocent until the very end where he like gave it away that like, yeah, I killed somebody. But you would have thought he was entirely innocent.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of their point, to be like, you really don't know who's living next door. You really don't know
Right.
these people.
Who is living next door, by the way?
We don't know
We
yet.
have
We
no
haven't
idea.
met them. They have 3 cats. I've only seen the man. Tim has seen the husband or wife or girlfriend. lady friend, whatever.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Which one's the murder?
Exactly.
When it comes to entertainment, so I just wrote my final paper on how media has changed since the Columbine shootings.
Interesting.
And I thought that it was appropriate when I gave my presentation on it. I basically said all the names of the victims first. And I said, how many of you recognize those names? And maybe like 2 people raised their hands. Then I said, Eric Harris, Dylan Klebold, Jeffrey Dahmer, blah, blah, blah. Like just listed off all these names. How many of you know who these people are? Everyone raised their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my main thing now that I'm trying to do and take into account is the fact that the victims have a story to tell and it's never in the spotlight.
Yeah.
We always remember the killer, but
Yeah.
never the victims.
Well, and are you talking about just media in general, or are you talking news?
Media
or
in
what?
general.
Okay.
But I had to specifically kind of focus, because it was a shorter paper.
Right.
I had to specifically focus on more news outlets.
Well, and-
but it affected, for one, rated R movies were actually banned for a whole year after Columbine, if you didn't
really?
know.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so the studio did not make anything with gratuitous violence, nothing. Because at the time,
What studio?
whatever, like Hollywood in
Oh,
general.
okay.
So at
Disney.
Because at the time, there was a lot of blame being put on Marilyn Manson and
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino, because the footage of Dylan and Eric making home videos, shooting real guns and whatever, reenacting Pulp Fiction. So they tried to blame violent movies and rock and roll.
Well, and they do that with video games all the time as
Oh
well.
yeah, we see it in all sorts of different things now. But at the time, that was the target.
Well, and just to tag along with your point there as well, one of the very interesting things that I've noticed, and particularly like I very much enjoy watching Philip DeFranco for some news information here and there and stuff, and he makes a point of not saying the names
Yes.
of like terrorists and
he'll even
school
say,
shooters
because
and stuff
fuck
like
those
that.
assholes.
Yeah, and,
pretty
and
much.
because and the whole reason being, I don't want to give that limelight and give glory to that.
Exactly.
And because you could almost argue that some of the time that's what motivates it is, hey, this
It
will
is.
get me on the news. This will
Yep.
get me attention.
And actually, I mean, and we're talking about it right now, so I guess it's a little.
We're kind of hypocritical
I'm being
about it.
hypocritical about it. But Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the shooters of at Columbine, even basically said we're going to live on forever, and they weren't kidding. They're
Yeah.
still studied and talked about. Here we
Yeah.
are, 20 years later. It's
Yeah,
not
and
ever going to
it's
go
not gonna
away.
change anytime soon.
And it's insane. But obviously that's a whole other categorization. I guess it just falls under the category of violence. Why we're attracted to violence so much. But obviously there's school shooters, whereas we're talking more about serial killers.
Well, it's still the same thing.
That's still like that would still be the macabre, so to speak, right?
It is, yeah,
So-
yeah.
I literally wrote down as I was making my notes that it's the media and the law enforcement that make these serial killers
Yeah.
celebrities.
Yep.
You're constantly talking about it. It's on every form of media. It's in the news. It's in newspapers. It's in magazines.
Yeah. I wouldn't say the
fucking
law enforcement,
documentaries.
but I'd say the media for sure. But
Mhm.
because I mean, law
News
enforcement
outlets.
is their job to like
That's
to,
true, yeah.
to try to find it, but it's the media that then reports
Yeah,
on
yes.
their findings and stuff,
Yes.
and it's like that's almost just getting in the way of them doing the
Right.
job of like, let's find these people.
Perfect example, Amanda Knox. That whole thing blew up. She's not a serial killer. Amanda Knox, she was a study abroad student in Italy, and her roommate got murdered. And she was an American student, and the whole media just blew up, and it painted the picture that people really believed that she did it. And literally all the physical evidence, her name was none of her DNA was to be found anywhere in the physical evidence of her roommate's murder. But the media blew up, and the media, found this picture on her Facebook of her like sitting on a machine gun in some museum, and she's laughing. Oh, she's crazy. She's a psychopath. She must be a killer. And how her
This is making me
MySpace,
think Gone Girl. Sorry, continue.
her MySpace name was Foxy Noxy because that was her like soccer team inside joke nickname. Oh, she's a slut. She's a whore. This was some sex crazed thing. Her and her boyfriend killed her roommate. The media blew it up, and the media got a hold of her personal jail because she was in jail. They got her journal and she wrote down everybody she's ever had sex with. She goes, I'm not the slut that everybody thinks I am. I didn't do any of this, but the media blew it up and she became huge. Obviously, like everybody knows who Amanda Knox is now, but it's strictly just because of the media.
Yeah. So, and to play off of that again with the paper that I just written for Columbine, that wasn't the first school shooting, but it was the first where it wasn't a targeted assault, whereas school shootings prior to it were a one and done kind of thing where there was one victim. So if you take a look at Donald Trump's speeches that he's had to deal with, or Barack Obama's speeches when it comes to any act of violence, school shooting, whatever the case may be, they're very emotional. Even Donald Trump, who I can't fucking stand, is very sympathetic, empathetic, has nice words. Bill Clinton's speech when the Columbine shootings had happened was very, well, we have to take the proper precautions to make this not happen again. And it was like done. It was very nonchalant, very calculated, just over and done with. And ever since, because this was the whole point of this paper, media since that moment has blown up to be basically fear mongering.
Yeah.
They just want to put as much fear into us as a society as possible. Everything is hate and discontentment. If you look at any kind of news source from Europe or Canada, 90% of it is happiness.
Yes.
And in America, it is all
negative.
Yeah, corruption. It's all negativity. It's all violent.
It's all murders. It's all
Here's
fires,
all the
it's
bad
all-
things that are happening.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that we're so attracted to it, because for one,
We're being brainwashed to want to know.
exactly, and I think there's also this inherent want to understand something that we don't get, psychologically speaking.
I wrote that down. We're so interested in these people because we can't fathom how they could do any of these things.
Right.
Therefore, we want to know more and more and more about them so we can try to have an understanding, but
there's no answer. There's no answer.
Yeah.
Going back to, I see it's ironic that you're saying name we remember forever. What was the name of the girl that you were talking about?
Amanda Knox.
Amanda Knox. Like what
Amanda
you were saying
Bynes.
for what a girl wants. What you were saying with that reminded me of the movie Gone Girl, in the sense of the way that movie showcases the news and the media in it, and how interesting it is, where so much of it could also just be writing its own story, and how much that could actually define and depict what actually kind of happens and is affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
Like so much of the focus of that movie is basically how, hey, this is how this will be perceived, so now you have to act accordingly. And so it's fascinating that not only does it paint things in such negative light, it can it can be this bastion that kind of glorifies certain things. It can direct even minute aspects of specific cases and stuff, just based off of how it's reported and how that is what people focus on.
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean, there were so many people that really thought that Amanda was guilty, but when you really looked at the evidence of it all, none of her, there was no DNA was in like the crime scene of hers or her boyfriend's. What had happened was the Italian forensic people really fucked up and took hundreds of pieces of evidence from the crime scene and then put it in the same room and did testing on that evidence, as well as taking evidence or, Amanda Knox's clothes or her boyfriend's clothes, and did the same tests in the same room. So literally DNA got
cross-contaminated, basically.
Yes, thank you. And that's how shit got fucked up. Anywho, zizzles. I'm really into like the crime scene or the true crime podcasts. My favorite murder is my absolute favorite podcast.
Such a great one. I love that one.
I still need to check that out.
I'm super into Sinisterhood right now. They do a lot of true crime. They do a lot of like paranormal stuff. They do a few different things. So kind of how I like a lot of the earlier episodes of My Favorite Murder, they would just talk about older cases like in the 70s or whatever. And just how I see it more as like, let's talk about it so we can see how far our law enforcement has come. Let's see how far our
like forensics and things like that.
Yes, exactly.
Detective
Because like
abilities.
if Ted Bundy did this shit today, there's no fucking chance in hell he would have lasted as long as he did, killed as many women as he did. He fucking ran away twice, by the way. He ran away from the courtroom while he was in court, whatever, and he escaped from jail, and he was gone for like 2 weeks. That would not have fucking happened.
There's a funny joke by John Mulaney talking about how easy it was to like murder people or rob places back in like the old west, where it's like people would literally show up and like yell, tell them it's the Scully boys, and like shoot their names into the wall and stuff. It's like, well, can't really go off of anything. It's like,
when's the last, like, when was our last serial killer? Like, we haven't had one, have we?
Probably not, from a lack of trying or a lack of, they may have just not been caught. I think there was, what the hell was her name? She was, you ever see the movie Monster with Charlize Theron? Let me look it up real quick.
Okay, well,
I think there's been a huge shift from serial, like say a serial killing type thing, to like, I feel like school shootings has kind of taken over that. And it might be due to the fact that, say, law enforcement type stuff has just progressed to where we can solve things quicker. But maybe that's kind of what's led more light into like a very quick type of murder that takes out a lot of people in a very short time span.
Yeah.
And maybe that's added to that too. I don't know.
So is a school shooter, is he considered a serial killer?
No.
Okay.
Because serial is what that's planned, calculated.
Yeah,
and
there's like usually some kind of ritual involved.
It's like a certain amount of people over the span of like a certain amount of time.
Well, I think
like if you killed like 6 people in like a week, you're a serial killer.
Well, it has to do with the number, but it also has to do with the ritualistic aspect, I believe. Like how Dexter has the same ritual every time he kills. It's like that. Whereas like just randomly going in and shooting up a store, you're not a serial killer. You're a mass murderer.
Gotcha. I mean, if you think about how far our forensic has come, I mean, the Golden State Killer was fucking forever ago, and we just found out who he was through DNA. He was also an idiot, and I'm pretty sure he did like one of those Ancestry.com tests. I think that's what happened. Don't quote me on that, but I'm like 80% sure that's what happened.
Ancestry.com has ever done.
I mean, somebody Google that, how the Golden State Killer got caught.
It's not in your notes.
Eileen.
Sorry. I had to do these at work.
I think. Eileen Wuornos. I'm mispronouncing her name, I think. But Eileen was a...
Come on, Eileen.
She was a...
it's Irene, but that's close enough.
A killer in Florida. And so she was a prostitute, and she basically went around killing men that she would pretend to go...
Is this the movie you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it based off of a real person, real story? Or
yes.
Okay. I'm making sure, because we've kind of talked about media and stuff, and so I wasn't sure if you're talking about a fiction or nonfiction.
No. So she's the last serial killer, I believe.
Oh, when was this?
The 2000s.
Whoa.
Yeah. I think she killed 7 men.
Oh my God, go for her.
Okay. Toxic femininity.
Yeah, Jesus. Although I do believe, at least the way it was depicted in the film, which I don't know if this is true or not, because I've only seen one documentary with her where she's a vile fucking bitch, by the way.
I was honestly kidding everybody. My God. Toxic masculinity for you guys attacking me.
Yeah.
Are we attacking you, or are we attacking a woman that murdered 7 people?
Yeah.
Because I think we're attacking her.
But the way it was
But you
depicted,
don't see a lot of women serial killers.
Yeah, the way it was depicted, well, that's not true.
I don't know.
No, I'm just thinking it's like how equality in the workforce. We want equality in serial killers.
Yeah.
The way it was depicted in the film was that the first killing was based off of a man trying to rape her. So then she basically, I mean, he was raping her, and then he shot him with the gun that she had in her glove compartment. And then from that point on, she looked at it as a way to get money, but also was terrified. So she couldn't like do her job anymore. The means of making a living was prostitution.
Right.
And so then she was terrified and looked at all men the same. And instead of them being able to get her first, she killed them and took their money. Not that makes it right.
No, it doesn't make it right at
I
all.
mean, fuck the guy that was trying to rape her.
Right.
But yeah.
So I was talking to Erica about it again, and I was just like, we're gonna talk about this on our podcast. Like, and it's this weird thing that we're just curious about. We're just curious about things that we can't understand. And we're also just attracted to chaos. And I kind of related it like on a simpler way of being like, when you see somebody get pulled over, you slow down a little bit and you turn and you try to see who it is. Not that you would know the person, but you just want to know what the fuck is going on. Because you're just like, ooh, someone got in trouble. What's going on?
What they do.
Yeah. Literally, on my way home from work, somebody was pulled over and the car door was open. So I was like, that's weird. And I looked in and a cop was searching this dude's car. I was like, oh shit. Like, who is this person? What do I need to know about him? Is he going to be on the news? Does he have weed in his car or a gun? Who is this? A lot of different things. It's like you can't really look away from a car wreck, you know? You're just curious and like we're just oddly interested in shitty things. Because we love what we don't understand.
Yeah, there's a element of curiosity that comes along with there's a whole Freudian thing about how, and this is psychologically speaking, sex and violence are directly correlated. Mm-hmm. So there's some stimulation involved with violence that we enjoy, same as sex, which is really interesting. They're obviously very different things, but yeah, they're very similar in our brain.
Well, and the other thing is, or that I would pay attention to, is the fact that it's kind of breaks up the monotony in a way. Like, we're so used to this very structured society type thing where there's very structural consistencies that have been built up for, you know, a long time now to keep things running smoothly. And things like that break that consistency. And so it's kind of, I think, fascinating in that way, where it's something that's broken off of the very normal routine as well, where that's just a bit different.
Yeah.
I wrote something else. I can't remember.
Tell me what it is.
Please.
Quit fucking with the sound effects for the paper. You don't actually have any paper.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I can't believe you've used that app twice now.
I've used this app twice. So you'd be like, yeah, Adam, stop hitting your like buttons. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about us being interested in the psychological workings of somebody that would literally rape and murder somebody and then disembowel them and then have sex with their organs.
Bundy.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Bundy did it too. Didn't he have sex with a severed head?
He may have.
I think he did.
Jeffrey Dahmer was very specific about having sex with organs and stuff.
Jesus, Jeffrey. God.
But
we talked about this,
so
man.
It's interesting that we actually give enough of a fuck instead of having just the initial reaction of, I'm disgusted by that. Someone put a fucking bullet in his head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm just as guilty of it. You know, that's literally what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah. So what made you want to, what you have no answer to, like what clicked your curiosity?
I have no clue what has always made me interested. Cause my novella that I wrote when I was 18 or whatever was about a school shooting. And I had to do a lot of research on the Columbine shootings. Cause at the time, fortunately, we didn't really have any of these other shootings. I mean, that was about it. All these other shootings that happened, you know, Parkland, et cetera, didn't happen until after I graduated high school. So lots of Columbine stuff. So I saw like on the internet, I don't know if it was horrific and terrible and whatever, but you could find like actual footage. Mm-hmm. And so I watched all that, which is horrifying.
Yeah, I've seen it too.
I read basically 2 books on Columbine and watched every fucking video known to man on either one of the boys that was involved in their lives to base it all off of that. But I don't know what made me, actually, I do have an answer for you. Specifically school shootings, that what made me so interested in that element was that's my biggest fear.
Oh, fuck yeah.
So in high school, even when that wasn't really a thing yet, because all these school shootings again started really happening when I was in my first year of college. Mm-hmm. But We did all the drills. We grew up in a time where those drills were a part of our lives.
Did you go ahead?
It was always my worst fear. It was always my worst fear.
Did you get any bomb threats when you were at school?
Fuck yeah, we had I think we had 8 altogether in my entire middle school. Nope, in my entire middle school and high school combined, we had 8 where we literally had to evacuate and did not go back to school.
Holy
I
crap.
remember like 2 or 3 of them, and we're 4 years apart.
Yep.
So
we had a lot of them. Yep.
I remember 2 or 3 of them.
There was one scare with a gun. I had one scare with a gun at UB. Literally my first week there.
I think you've told me that story.
In the Commons at UB, and granted, it's 35,000 students. There's a fuck ton of people.
How big was your guys' high school?
I graduated with 50 kids.
120 was my class, and it was the largest class that I'd ever gone through.
And we went to the same high school.
Right. Crap. That's a small school too for that.
Where like you could catch somebody, you could catch the dude or the person who did it.
Yeah.
But at UB, it was my first week there, and in the Commons, and I had just left the Commons when this happened too, so that's even worse. Not that it's worse for me, I guess.
Bad all around.
Bad no matter what. But I had just gotten Moe's or whatever, and then made it back to my freaking apartment, and not 10 minutes later, I had an alert on my phone. There's a gun in the Commons.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
I used to get those in college.
But in high school, I don't know if this is how it was for you or not. Probably didn't really have to worry about it with the 20 kids in your whole school.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I don't remember anything like that even when I was at Pittsburgh either. I mean,
by the way, sorry.
I mean,
I don't like that word.
Oh,
there probably was, but I just don't really remember it. I think maybe, one, I don't think they had as many issues with that stuff at the time, particularly say middle school. But I think even when I was in high school, there wasn't much. But yeah, when I went to Lima, it's like they definitely had like the security type stuff where it's like the doors were always locked and you always had to like ring into the desk type thing.
You never did a drill though?
I don't think so.
Do you remember doing
That's
like
insane.
lockdowns? Because I think that was most popular. Like I think our lockdowns were like you hid under your desk, lights off, door locked, and you just stayed silent for like a good half hour to 45 minutes.
I don't think we did at Lima though.
That's insane that they wouldn't do that.
I mean, when were you in middle school? Because I mean, he's younger than us.
Yeah.
Which would mean I probably should have.
Then you
more.
should. Yes, that's right. Sorry, that makes sense.
No, I think I did in Pittsburgh. But I think Lima was just so small.
But
like
people snap.
I'm not saying it shouldn't have been. I'm just saying like that kind of explains why. Because everyone knew everyone. And
right.
Not that that's a good excuse because
everyone knew everyone at Shortsville too.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it's like they did have security measures that would have been something that shocked me beforehand. Like right now, say I wanted to go back to my elementary school to like see a teacher or something that I had when I was a kid. It's like I would not dare go near my elementary school at this point because it's like one that would seem like a huge security risk, and like I don't know. I feel like that stuff would scare so many people. And it's weird to think that that's how it is now because, and like, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think my high school did too much because everyone had to be buzzed in and like.
Yeah. So like, if anything, he already had a security taken care of where we were already at a point where we couldn't get that security.
Right.
So
That's
we
true.
had to do these drills. We had to do these lockdowns.
I remember actually because the doors were never locked. And then it was the year after, again, I was going to drop something off at Megan or whatever. So I had to go to the office. I had to get buzzed in. And that was the first time I'd ever seen that happen.
Yeah. I
And that
remember more in high school when we started buzzing in.
Yeah,
and I think
that
it
wasn't a
was
thing
like
for us.
my 8th, like I was in 8th grade or my freshman year that I remember doing the drill where we actually left school. I remember that being in like 7th grade. And then I remember my last like 2 lockdowns were either 8th or 9th grade.
Yeah, and that was the majority of it for me. Is it's just like I remember through. I don't know if middle school is this way. I think it was. I think both middle school and high school is like you pretty much have to get buzzed in, and you have to go to the office immediately. Like
You got buzzed into the office. Yeah.
So and they were always right by the door.
And it's even crazy. My cousin John's last year at high school, they banned backpacks. How the
Really?
fuck do you care? I'm not kidding. And he like.
I mean, it makes
those
sense.
like those string.
I mean, yeah, I get
backpacks,
it.
Drawstrings.
Like the drawstring ones?
He continued to carry one of those, and he got sent to the principal's office for it. And he's basically like, "So I'm just gonna carry all my shit by hand, pretty much." which is that's absurd.
Like a peasant.
Well, what if you have a fuck ton? There used to be a shit ton of textbooks.
Like 6 textbooks.
Yeah,
easy.
50 pounds worth of shit that you're just going to carry in your hands.
Oh, I'm just teasing. My entire high school career, I literally bought a diaper bag because I was in all the plays and everything, and I'd stay so late after school. I had all of my book stuff in it. I had change of clothes, food, my lunch. I had everything in this diaper bag. That was my life in high school.
That's crazy. Is insane. Yeah, we didn't have extreme measures like that. But yeah, so to answer your question, that is what fascinated me and has always fascinated me about the unfortunate topic. God bless anyone who has been touched by this or had to deal with it. But school shootings, it's because I've always wanted to know more about it because it is literally my biggest fear. And even, I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. Everywhere we go, you and I check the exits.
Oh, yeah.
We spend the first fucking 15 minutes in a movie theater being anxious and making sure.
I have panic attacks a lot at theaters now.
Yeah, everywhere we go, literally, that's the first thing we do as a precaution. And even in our daily routine, like when we go shopping, I don't let Catherine bring the cart back. And it's not me being chivalrous. It's me being cautious.
Yeah.
I just don't.
I don't think so. Like back in my middle school, high school days, I don't think I really knew how crazy shit was. You know what I mean? Where it wasn't until I was older that I kind of started getting interested in true crime and listening to these podcasts that I'm now that much more aware of it. I mean, just we went to go see a movie, like about a month ago, and it had just come out, and we got there pretty early. There was maybe 8 other people in the theater, and then more people came up. This was before the movie started, and the theater was almost full. And I haven't been to a movie theater that was that full in a long time that I looked at Tim and I was just like, I'm getting really uncomfortable with the amount of people that are here. At a movie theater, that is normal to have these groups of people. But it's been so long since I've had more than like 50 people in one theater that I was like, I don't know any of these fucking people and they could be psychos.
It was sold out and there was a huge crowd of people. Yeah. And that's how it is for whenever we go to concerts too. It's like that
was the other one I was going to mention.
We stayed for Kendrick Lamar, we stayed towards the back just in case anything happened. And granted, that particular venue is huge and very wide open. But I mean, that's always it sucks that we live in a world where that is literally our first precaution.
First notion when walking into it.
Exactly. And even when I would go to Alex 140, like the gay bar with my friend Patrick. Yeah. First thing he would always tell me is like, we need to be aware of our surroundings because the Florida shooting in the gay nightclub had just happened. Yeah. So it was like anywhere he always told me, he's like, I'm never going to bullshit you. No matter what, if you're with me, you're a target. Just as him being a gay man. So anytime we'd go to a crowded bar or whatever, he's like, I'm gonna show you where the exits are, and then just be cautious. Insane.
I'm always nervous when I don't recognize someone at church, at my family's church.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Because I mean, like, granted, it's not as often that you see attacks like that on, say, a Baptist Christian religious organization.
What about that one guy that walked into that church and just shot up the church?
But it happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like just being part of any religious organization right now, it's like every time I'm there, like if I don't recognize someone, I'm immediately very much on edge.
Mm-hmm. It's so bizarre that like we've become this cautious, but yet we don't ever really believe that it could happen to one of us.
Yeah, and nothing's done about it, by the way, ever. We still don't see anything happening.
And I think maybe that's why we're all subconsciously interested is that like
gun reform, for example.
Okay.
Huh.
What?
I mean, I probably have very different views than you on that. So
probably not. I was raised with guns. I love guns.
Okay. Because reform sounds like much more regulation against owning them.
Not against owning them, but like, for example, when I turned 18, I went to a gun shop and I bought a gun and it took me 3 minutes.
All right, never mind. We are on a similar page. So it's just when you said that, I immediately thought you meant like,
nah, dude, I've been shooting guns since I was 7.
Well, things have changed, obviously, because my brother went to go buy parts to build a gun and he went through a whole background check. So and that was what in the past like 2 years.
I think you've always had to go on background
sometimes
checks.
Consist of 5 minutes of have you ever been arrested?
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm petrified of guns. I've never bought a gun. I don't know.
I think almost always there's a background check. I don't know if there's anything like maybe
but
a
not
BB
like
gun.
A super in-depth background check. Okay.
There's never in Granted, I've only purchased 3 guns ever. They were a couple years apart. I haven't bought one in like 5 years, so it could have changed. I'm not sure.
We'll have to ask somebody.
But at the time, it took all 5 minutes.
Well, because usually they send the information to, I think, is it FBI? What is it? It's whatever organization that keeps track of this type of stuff, and then they check in with them. It's like, yep, nope, their record's clean.
No federal offenses. You're good.
Yeah. So it's usually pretty quick, but it's because it's like if there's not really red flags, then it's quick. If there is, then it's a whole bit more.
So I guess my point is, and that's not the only issue. I think the broader issue is there being a wider knowledge and acceptance that there is a serious crisis with the mental health, and trying to make it so that there's no stigma in getting help and whatever else you need, because there's I don't know. I mean, I don't obviously I don't know what the answer is. I'm not.
Well, yeah, and we're not here to come up with the answer because
I'm not going to. I don't study this. I haven't spent my life on it.
Quite frankly, there might not be one, at least in entirety.
Right.
There's
clearly a fucking problem though when this is literally. There was just two school shootings last week, by the way.
I know.
I didn't know that.
So it's. How
isn't it one? I think it's at least one every 2 months. I think is the current statistic, which is disgusting.
And it has been, and it has been since
Sandy Hook, right?
Like 2012, I think is when it really. It's like, oh, now we just have one every other week now.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. I don't understand how it's even possible. But yeah, so in comparison, we used to have not a prominent, but a sickeningly alarming amount of like serial killers or sudden sprees of people just going crazy and killing their whole family. Now we have school shootings.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. Obviously there's got to be, is there something in the fucking water? Are our cell phones or our laptops making us go crazy? I don't know. How is it that this is such a prominent issue?
I mean, I'd say more than anything, I would kind of lean towards media, and particularly news media, personally, because I don't think someone sees a movie and is like, oh, I kind of want to go murder people now, or I don't think someone plays Call of Duty and is like, I kind of want to shoot people now. But what I think does kind of drive that is attention and fame, and like, you know what, I don't feel recognized by anyone, I don't feel noticed or like looked at by anyone, I'm gonna make sure everyone sees me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that I feel like can add to it a lot. That's particularly why I appreciate, say, Philip DeFranco, where it's like we're not saying names. I know some other news organizations have started doing that bit by bit, and I think that's important. But
I agree.
It could be this overwhelming sense of pressure that's contributing to it. With the sense of having to keep up with everybody, and because of social media, because I'll tell you, the statistic of suicide, like I already told you on our last podcast, is literally, I think it's like number 7 on top 10 deaths in America.
Where it is, but it's definitely increased a lot as some of that technology has increased. And I wouldn't be shocked if it comes from a similar place to that. Yeah. It's just a different way of someone kind of lashing out in a way.
So self-mutilation, it all stems from this thing of violence. But in general, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure where the fascination with serial killers has come from. But I'll tell you that as a kid.
What's she doing?
As a kid, she was trying to get my cider. Oh. As a kid, I always enjoyed bands like Marilyn Manson, like Korn. They were different. They were disturbing. Like if you ever saw a Marilyn Manson music video, whatever. So I think I've just always enjoyed, I don't know, like satanic shit. All that kind of stuff has just always fascinated me. But yeah, so I'm not entirely sure. So, but what about you? And you?
Don't fucking know. I mean, I guess I don't know why my fascination or like my interest of it came, but I just remember when Tim and you and I were looking for like movies to watch, and it was before you wrote your paper about Columbine that we saw something on Hulu about Columbine. I was like, oh, we should watch it. And Tim's just like, I don't want to watch it. Like, I don't want to be sad. And then he was going through, and there was one about the Parkland shooting that just happened, 2 years ago?
I think it might have been a
year
little bit
and a half,
than,
maybe 2007.
Recent. I mean, 16. These victims
honestly,
were.
As much as I hate to say it, I get them mixed up at this point.
I know.
Parkland was Florida.
the victims were younger than me.
I thought that was like 3 years now, but I'm probably off.
Well, whatever.
And Tim's like, no, I can't watch it. I can't watch it. And I was like, I have to watch it. And I think it's because at this point that it has unfortunately become such a regular thing that I have to watch it. I have to be interested in it. So
it's like being informed on current events almost.
Yeah. That like I have to know what's going on so I can have a better understanding of what our fucking world is so fucked up for.
Yeah.
2018, by the way.
Parkland is?
Shit. So yeah, last year.
Last year.
And that one was so fucked up. The guy didn't even go to that high school. He graduated like 2 years before. And then he was an alumni student and he decided to go back. There's, again, no reason why. But again, it's like, I have to watch this so I know what happened. So I can also feel, I'm not going to say the right word. I don't like the word connected.
Empathetic?
Yes, thank you. Empathetic for the survivors.
Well, and the reason why I couldn't watch that particular one is because it showed footage of it happening because everybody had smartphones.
Right.
So you were actually watching kids being slaughtered.
Yeah,
I've seen it all before. Like I've seen it on YouTube. I saw it with the Columbine videos I saw some of the Parkland stuff that they showed where there was I can't remember his name, but a young African American male just dead on the floor. I've seen him.
It was like a Snapchat video almost
Exactly.
of a girl, the way
Who had
she
been
got
shot.
The way she got shot though. So this is also kind of why I watched it, is just to see what the survivors went through and how strong like these really young kids are. You know what I mean? None of them cried. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the way that this girl got shot, she slid down up against a podium, that if the podium wasn't back there, she would have bled out. That like the way she was shot, the way she slumped, like held the wound closed almost, and the way her arm was over her side pretty much was controlling the bleeding.
Yeah.
So like in some weird way, you know, her path was chosen, you know what I mean? But also subconsciously, you watch these things and you're fascinated and you want to know more because subconsciously you don't think it's ever going to happen to you.
Well, and to be fair for the media, I don't really know jack shit about the gunman for Parkland.
I don't either.
I know tons about the survivors.
Me too.
And again, I do. That's fair, and I think that it has shifted pretty well.
Yeah,
or it's like at least started to make
I agree.
Shift.
Again, with the Las Vegas shooting, don't know jack shit about the shooter, other than that they basically were trying to claim that he was like the nicest guy ever, and they think that it was related to some kind of like aneurysm that was happening in his brain or something, or he had like brain cancer, and that's actually happened before, where psychologically speaking, if a tumor is pressing against the right part of your brain, you suddenly become very violent, which is insane. That's an actual thing, though.
That's crazy.
And
let's do more research on that.
Yeah, and so the conclusion was that he suddenly had some fucking brain tumor and he went nuts and killed a bunch of people.
See, and that kind of gets to my fascination with it, which with a lot of this stuff, for me, it stems to, say, any mechanical thing, right? Say like when my computer starts to break down, say if my car is having trouble and stuff, and for both of those, or at least my car especially, I don't tend to start taking it apart myself because I don't know much about it, but I'm always intrigued, like, I wonder what the issue is. I want to know what thing went out of place and malfunctioned to cause this. And so for me, it ends up being kind of the psychology, sociology of like, what's ticking in this person's brain off that causes this to be the way that they respond. And
right.
And it's one of those things where I don't think I'll ever fully be able to understand because it's not something that
you as a normal functioning
as an individual
person are going to ever understand. And it's just like that piece of shit Elliot Rodger. Do you guys know who he is?
No.
He was a shooter at I don't remember which college it was, but it was in California. I think maybe you might know. We were watching some of the videos of him like on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is farcical. That's part of the problem too, is none of us take it seriously, because you see someone like that fucking schmuck who's sitting there on YouTube being like, I'm the supreme gentleman and I deserve all these women. He fucking killed he killed, I think, 6 people, and shot like 13, 6 of them died, something like that. I don't know the exact statistics, so I'm sorry if they're incorrect.
Well, and it's one of those videos where without that ever having happened, you would probably sit and laugh at, and then seeing that, like, what happened, it's like,
the
wow.
shootings didn't happen,
right?
Yeah, because he's got a whole list of YouTube videos about how he deserves to fuck whoever he wants. He's the best looking man ever. He has BMW. All the other people were schmucks in comparison, and he was just pissed off that he wasn't getting laid, and he killed people for it.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Yeah, that's something fucked up, something psychological, obviously.
Well, right, and so it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that's kind of silly, and then that happens. It's like, okay, no, this is way more serious than
we need to do. We need to learn more and figure it out.
Killed both his roommates by stabbing him like 75 times.
Oh my fucking god!
So it's one of those things where it's like, man, getting better at being able to pick up on this and catch it ahead of time, not just like write things off, is so key. So that's what I was getting at with that. Is like,
yes, I think it's like true crime in general. I mean, I think you can kind of generalize most of these true crime incidents that like we want to know more about. We want to know more psychologically. Why are you this way? Like, why did Ted, like this whole Gypsy Rose thing that's going on, the Munchkin by proxy shit. We all know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Okay, hold please. This is an Erica conversation again. Munchausen by proxy, where like a parent forms like this illness in their child when the child's not actually ill. So there's this whole show called The Act that's on Hulu right now. It's based off a true story of this girl named Gypsy Rose, and her mother.
Wait, is this the one I've been seeing ads for on Hulu then as well?
This mother, her mother Dee Dee, had Munchausen by proxy, and like made Gypsy believe that she couldn't walk, that she had seizures, that she needed all this medical attention. And
this series looked fascinating as well.
It looks great. I'm listening to a podcast.
How is this related?
Just true crime in general, because psychologically we don't understand why Dee Dee has this, why she forced her child to believe all of these things, and why her child chose to believe all these things. Because even after Gypsy found out that I am healthy and I don't have all of these issues that my mother says I had, she still continued to do it.
Right.
And then she actually had her boyfriend and her kill Dee Dee. Y'all got to listen to this episode and you got to watch a show. I need to watch the show. But all psychologically, we don't understand, because we don't think something like that could ever happen to us. So we need to learn more about it.
Well, and by the way, developmental psychology has been trying to find a gene that is carried, a hereditary trait that carries the psychopathic gene. Like if it's a hereditary thing.
Interesting.
And they've been trying that for a long time.
I don't think it is.
I think that there's, genetically speaking, there's a predisposition. I think that all the stars have to align perfectly, but typically speaking, anyone who is a psychopath. So take, for example, and I know I keep using them, but they're the ones
Columbine.
that I know. They're the ones I know the
Take
most
a
about.
shot every time Tim talks about Columbine.
Yeah. But they were opposites. So one shooter was a narcissist and the other one was extremely depressive.
Yeah.
So the one manipulated the other
Right.
and used him. And that was a perfect storm. So I think a lot of the times, obviously, it's just a perfect storm in your own brain. Ted Bundy, narcissist as fuck.
Right. But like, I guess how I'm thinking of it is that, did any of his other family members show signs of something like this? I think sometimes you're just born evil. Sometimes you're just born wrong.
It's a miswiring. And if you look at the broad scope of things, it is incredibly uncommon to have that. I think as a human being in general, we are all capable. We all have
absolutely.
We all have primitive instincts.
Everyone has a point that they can be driven to.
Exactly. We all have primitive instinct. It's instinctual to be violent. It's a part of who we are, because again, years and years and years of having to rely on it as a means to survive doesn't just go away overnight.
Right.
that's why I think, if push came to shove, I know goddamn well I am capable of it. But there are people that obviously are missing something where it's a conscience or a lack of I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a lack of a conscience or something. But then I've seen what's interesting, because that's not always the case. I've seen it where serial killers have fucking hated themselves, like wanted to kill themselves, but couldn't do it.
Like who?
I can't remember his name, but he killed mostly women. He raped and murdered women, and then he killed his own mother. But every time this is what he claims. And even and again, it's a problem because you don't really know if you can trust them, because a lot of them are manipulative. But he basically killed all these women, killed his mother, and cried every time after, tried to kill himself a couple times. He just couldn't do it. But he hated himself, supposedly.
So it led him to kill others?
No, he knew that he had the problem that he couldn't stop himself, but he didn't want to do it, but he couldn't control himself, so he did it.
So he was a pussy and couldn't just kill himself.
Or like take the logical avenue and fucking go get some help. Like, how do you not just go to a psychiatrist and be like, I want to kill people, help me? You know what I mean? It's a lot more logical than just being like, oh, I'm going to blow my brains out now.
Yes.
It's just at that point you might be far enough gone that's your
But if he's clear enough to say, I know these things are wrong.
Having one sense of reason doesn't mean they're a reasonable person at that point. That's my argument to that.
Well, I don't know if there really needs to be an argument, because neither of us really knows.
And also then, like, what a shitty position that you're putting the therapist in. Because
Well, that's kind of their job.
That's
I know, but they can't say anything, can they? Like if you're just like, hey, doctor.
Not when it comes to violence.
Right. Oh, wait, so they can.
When it comes to violence,
Gotcha.
yes. If you're intending to harm somebody or yourself, they can say something.
I don't know a lot of things, people. If anything, I think maybe part of my interest in like true crime in general comes from, or has taught me, that I do need to be more aware. That like, even though I've said repeatedly now that like you don't think it could ever happen to you, but what if it fucking does? So you need to be like prepared, and you need to be aware.
Everybody should be on alert when it comes to these kinds of things, unfortunately, in order for their own safety.
Well, to their safety in general too.
Yeah.
Like I've texted Tim a license plate number before because I was afraid that like some guy was following me.
Yeah.
Like I was in the Wegmans parking lot like before work, and I noticed like some guy, like in my rearview mirror, I noticed some guy was like watching my car, and then I had my sunglasses on so he couldn't see where my eyes were, and I got out of the car and he like kept watching me, and then I saw him get out of the car and follow me into Wegmans, and I literally bought like 2 things. I was in and out super quick, and I was on my phone as I was walking out of the building. Like I was still in the building, and I on my phone looking down still had my sunglasses on, and the guy was just, somebody had said good morning, and I was just like, oh hi, how are you? And when I had looked up for a second, it was a guy that had watched me from the van right before I had parked.
Nope.
As I had walked, so he was walking in, as I was walking out, I got into my car and the guy had followed me out. And I texted him the license plate, and I was like, hi, I'm here. This is the license plate, but I'm going to work now. Like,
yeah,
just so you fucking know.
I particularly like the street that I live on has like a T off of it. So there's like 2 entrances onto the street. And so there's been times where it's like, I don't think I've actually ever had to do it, but like if I've thought like if someone's following me or like just behind me long enough, and they happen to turn onto my street as well, I'll particularly go a little slower, start to see if like they turn into any of the other driveways along the way. But if I get to that point, I'm going to turn off my street, back to the main road, circle back around, since it works in such a way that I can just circle back to the other entrance. And if they follow me to that level, then no go. I'm going to be going somewhere else until my gas tank's empty.
Oh yeah.
Well, and for Catherine's main concern, it's been a huge ongoing issue with sex trafficking in our own area.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you really have seen anything about this, but
No, I've
in Palmyra and Macedon and Canandaigua, it's always vans. It's
I've
always
seen a little bit.
these
I
guys.
haven't heard much recently. This was a few months ago, the last time I heard that this was
Yeah.
like an actual thing.
Like a year ago, it happened to Vicky too. Vicky
yeah,
went,
I remember Vicky saying that.
and she went into Walmart and came out and called her dad and pretended to be on the phone. Well, no, she pretended to be on the phone with her dad. So it's a very unfortunate and
Oh my fucking God.
Jesus.
Gavin's home, everybody.
Not the topic to have the
You
door
fuck.
randomly
We're
open.
literally talking about people like kidnapping me.
and like mass murder and stuff. So it's all
My
right.
mom had the same thing when she was My mom had the same thing when she was younger. She got her car broke down
Welcome
on the
back.
side of the road, and a truck had pulled up, like a pickup truck had pulled up behind her on the throughway, and she was gonna get out. They got out and was walking to the car, and she called my dad. And my dad's just like locked the doors. And as soon as they had seen her pick up the phone, it was like 4 guys. They walked back to the truck and drove off. And then just over the summer,
Not a fan.
I work with all females. We close at 8:00. I think it was maybe like 7:30. It was myself, maybe 2 other coworkers, and maybe 2 clients still there. And it was dark out. And a van had pulled into our parking lot and just stayed there.
Mhm.
And I pulled up a coworker. I was like, "Do you see that? Like he's just been sitting there for like 20 minutes." And her dad's a cop. She goes, "I can call my dad." Like the fact that that's her first initial thought, that
Yeah.
like I can call my dad. Like we can figure this out. Like we don't know what's going on, because people could fucking scope it out. They all know it's all females. They know our
yeah.
hours are available on the internet. They know that when we close. And then a client had come up and she goes, "Oh, what's going on?" I was like, "No, we're just keeping an eye on a van." She goes, "I have a gun." Like that's her first thought. You know what I mean?
Well, and I will say that in and of itself is good that she has that on her for that
absolutely.
exact case, because that's one, it's ridiculous that has to be the thought,
Right.
and then 2, it's like thank goodness that in certain instances that there are those solutions, because there's not always, and that's the particularly terrifying part.
The fact that I think about at least once a day, I think of several things that could happen. 1, somebody's following me. Anytime I see a car that I saw maybe 2 minutes ago, and then I see him again on the throughway, I'm like, they're following me.
Yep.
Second is, God forbid somebody comes into where I work and try to rob the place and shoot up where I work. Another thing that I think about. The third thing I think about is when I close at night, and the way that we have it set up is that if you're the closer of where I work, you can park in like this little cove spot. My fear is that somebody's hiding and they're waiting for me.
Mm.
I think about those 3 things every single day. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
On my school campus, I think about
The same,
someone coming in every day, because that's the world that we live in.
Whenever because since I clean my family's church, if there's ever a car that like is just still in the parking lot, because it gets to be relatively late at night, so it's usually only the couple of us there who are cleaning. If there's ever a car, I immediately get very, very nervous of like, okay, I don't know who's out there and stuff and what they might want. And every time I'm at church on Sunday, very terrified. Even there's been once or twice, even picking you up from classes, where I get a little nervous of like, not that anything is necessarily going to happen with me just in a car in the parking lot, but just like I get that same feeling of concern of like, I just don't like how many people there are around here.
Yeah, it's a big campus.
So,
We need a plague.
Oh, it's been some serious real shit.
Yeah, we've been kind of all over the place with this one, but
That's
it's just
okay.
there's just so much to
Lots of
unpack.
macabre, lots of negativity, lots of violence.
Yeah, macabre is definitely the title.
It's the world we live in. So why are we fascinated with fuckers like Ed Gein, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, the Iceman killer?
No, are you talking about the ice truck killer from Dexter?
No, the Richard Kuklinski.
The Kool-Aid
Richard
Man.
Kuklinski. He was
What?
Richard Kuklinski. He was a hitman. He killed over 120 people.
Adam, you said the Kool-Aid man.
That was just me making a joke.
Also, I'm really into like cults. I don't understand cults. Those are pretty cool.
Charles Manson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting to me. I don't
Not
know why.
so cool, but
we could probably do one on cults. I'd have to do some research. But
Also, John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy.
Yep.
How he painted in jail, in prison, and people are like, I want to buy his paintings.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Well, Charles Manson wrote 3 books, I think, in prison.
Buy them. Add to shopping cart.
It's funny because in the interview about Ted Bundy, that Charles, I just told you about this. You should look it up because it's hilarious. Charles Manson was asked about Ted Bundy and what he thought about it, and he called Ted Bundy a poop butt.
Oh yeah, you were telling me that.
Literally.
That's great.
He's like, I got nothing to do with him. He's a poop butt.
He's a poop butt.
Something that I like, the podcast that I listen to, My Favorite Murder, that I'm sure millions and
Shout
millions
out.
of people know who they are. When they put their live episodes on their, like when they put their live episodes up, they always talk about like, you know, we'll make light, we'll joke around these things, but it's like, it's important that we talk about these things. It's important that people know how fucked up our world can be. And it's important that like we honor the survivors. We honor the ones that have fought through this, that have gotten through this. We honor the ones that like have taken the time to learn and want to learn and want to understand these things to protect people.
Yeah.
To get these fuckers who are fucked up and fucking suck.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's important, but like also that's what sometimes like honestly talking about true crime, talking about like other shitty people and how fucked up other people are can kind of take off that stress. Like I'm okay. Like there's been some really fucked up shit happening in this world that unfortunately so many people have to go through, that like I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to go through that, but like I can learn from this and I can, you know, find the interest in it and do something about it maybe. So I think maybe that's why I like it. I don't know.
I've got a very quick story for you.
I love stories.
Story time.
When Ben and I were finishing up doing a reshoot for Dark Chamber Part 2 in the springtime, we were driving up.
There it is. Sorry. You farted into the microphone. Don't look at me like that.
I was in the middle of a story and you interrupted it with
She
your
was in the
burp.
middle of a burp.
Yeah. Rude.
See, it's not always 2 against 1.
Thanks, Adam.
You fuck. So Ben and I were on our way up to the city and the power had gone out and his radiator decided to suddenly shit the bed. So we stopped at the gas station somewhere between Victor and Henrietta, and the gas station was closed because there was no power, but the guy let us in anyways. So it was just Ben and I and 2 guys at this gas station. And the main guy behind the counter was just telling us about how he just got out of prison for killing somebody and carrying on and on and on and on about it and getting into details about it. And I just told Ben, I was like, Ben, just stay close to me. And
hold me tightly.
No, like I didn't want him to get in an area where I couldn't protect him.
Yeah.
And because this guy was, whether or not he actually did what he, which by the way, I believe him because there's a certain element of being able to pick up on bullshit.
Right.
And he wasn't bullshitting. He was very, very serious about what he had done and how much he enjoyed what he did.
Ugh.
Apparently the guy that he had offed was a rapist. I don't know if that's the facts of it or not.
Yeah, it's all hearsay and all, but you're still
Exactly.
all you can base off of is what.
But this guy was a fucking nutcase, and I was just like basically telling him, I was like, Ben, I don't want you to worry too much. If anything happens, you take off. I'll take care of it. Take care of it as in I have no idea what he's going to do to me, but I will protect you.
What was the deal with the other? You said there was
the other guy
too?
ended up kind of like taking off and going outside and smoking a cigarette as this guy was buzzing in my ear about all the things that he had done. And then he ended up talking about how great his music was. And he's part of this huge rap scene in Rochester. And he's seeing all his buddies basically go to jail for murder and all this other shit. But anyways, all that to say that like, I think that's the last time I was genuinely nervous. Like genuinely like I might get into some kind of altercation.
I've never really been in that situation. I mean, like I've felt people, I mean, obviously that one guy in that parking lot and then the van, but like I've never felt true danger. Do you know what I mean? Like I've felt skeptical, I felt uneasy, but I've never been like something could happen right now.
Yeah, I've been in that situation a few times. There was a party I was at when I was 21 with Gabe, and there was a guy that was high as fuck on like acid. It was at a party in the mutual friend of ours. It was her parents' party, so it was a bunch of older guys. This older guy was on acid and had a broken beer bottle and came up to Gabe in his face and was calling him like saggy tits and all this other shit and trying to like start a fight with him. And I slowly behind me, because this was in a garage, picked up an axe just in case. Just like had the axe behind me, behind my back, because he couldn't see. And I was just waiting.
You were gonna kill a man.
He had it was a fucking, it was in his face with a sharp object.
So, okay. I don't agree with that, like, logical. Like,
you're saying you wouldn't want something sharp on you just to protect yourself?
I'm not saying I would cut his fucking head off. I'd knock him in his knee, though, and he'd know that he fucked up. Yeah. He was high as fuck, too, by the way. Like,
I heard you.
Like, had no idea what reality was.
You wouldn't just, like, punch him?
An axe, you don't have to use the sharp end either. You could use the blunt side.
Yeah, and he had a sharp object, so I don't really need to get stabbed after my friend got stabbed.
But I'll hit somebody with an axe. I don't understand that logic.
I'm not sure where you're not understanding the logic.
I like the look that Tim and I just gave each other. I'm just like, yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean,
self-preservation.
Yes, like I'll fuck you up. I don't really know what the question is, I guess.
You
stab my friend, I'm gonna fucking.
I think an axe is drastic.
What about a gun?
If you had a gun, yeah, get the axe. But a glass bottle?
No, I'm saying.
Oh.
If say you're in a parking garage and someone comes up to you with a knife, is a gun not?
No, fair? Yeah, that's fine. But I feel like
heads up to everybody out there.
A broken glass bottle is just as sharp, if not worse, than a knife at times.
Yeah, heads up to everyone out there. I will axe you if you're waving a sharp object in any of my friends or loved one's face. You know.
What he means by that is he always carries Axe body spray. And he will spray
I will blind you with Phoenix.
But see, if anything, maybe that just shows that like I don't think something like that could ever happen to me. Yeah. So therefore, I can't fathom. I can't understand.
It was scary.
Yeah,
it was really scary.
Sure, obviously frightening enough for you to grab an axe, but I can't put myself in that situation. It's never happened to me. Yeah. I could never understand it because I've never been in that situation.
Yeah.
Well, and it also might be kind of a fight or flight type thing. Where Tim, I feel like your natural reaction would be more so to like stand your ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So. Where for me, I would say it's very much dependent on the scenario.
I'm running.
If I can get away, I will. But if I need to, I'll stand.
It's obnoxious how many times I've been put in a position like that.
Yeah.
I am here to tell, like, between the awful thing with what I experienced at my old job, with the kid that I found, like, all these things that I've had to act on. But yeah, just so you all know, if there's anything bad that ever happens, I'm here to protect you.
Yeah, there's Phoenix Axe body spray.
Oh, great, Tim, to my hero.
Thanks.
You're welcome. But I mean, we've been together 2 years, and I haven't
tried to stab him with a broken bottle.
You haven't what?
Needed. I'm saying, fortunately enough, we haven't been in that situation where you've had to.
But let me just say, sometimes you don't really see it because, for example, when we were just at Maybird,
again, this just shows me being psychotic or blind to all of this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just very aware of my surroundings. So when we were at Maybird and there's that fucking annoying guy.
Yeah, I don't know why you couldn't like get into it. Like you were like so irritated with him.
Were you just always paying attention in case something?
Because he was inching towards us. He was drunk as shit.
I don't think he was. I think he's just totally into that music.
Tim, I think you and I gave each other a look when we're talking about the like taller dude, right?
Yes.
He went up and said something to some other young lady,
African American young lady that was the first performer. He hugged her, randomly went up and grabbed her and held her.
She looked like she knew him. Like I didn't see that. Like I saw him. Like
I saw it as an in between where like he went up and like started talking to her, but she didn't seem the most comfortable in the conversation.
He was randomly doing that to a lot of people. And then he was just talking to himself, like, what the fuck? But either way, when you had gone to, like, hold my hand a few times, my fist was clenched.
Yeah.
Because I've unfortunately been in the situation where, just a couple times, where some drunk fucking idiot is, like, bumping into somebody or me or whatever and not fucking off when they should know better. So I'm just always on high alert because you never know. And I don't know. That's just my reaction to things.
I didn't see any of that at all. Like, yes, he was dancing crazily, but I think it's because he likes music. But there was after that sweet couple that we sat next to, after they had left, another 2 older ladies were standing right next to us, and he went up to them and they had a full-on conversation. They went off, did their own thing. Those 2 ladies came back to him to say hello again. When he hugged that first performer, like I saw him come from behind and like tap her on the shoulder, and she turned her. I saw this. Maybe I'm crazy. I saw her turn around and be like, "Oh, hi," and gave him a big hug.
I didn't see that.
I think both of us saw it more as like the look that she kind of gave seemed kind of like nervous. And I didn't expect, like in that same situation, I wasn't expecting anything to really happen or like go off the walls crazy or anything like that. But it was one of those things where I think Tim and I gave each other a look and were like, all right, well, there's something to be prepared in case anything happens.
And to be honest with you, it could very much be related to my rough around the edges past of being around not so great people and not so great substances being passed around and stuff like that.
I thought it was more of the fact that like he was very tall and he was dancing real hard. And a lot of body movements, a lot of ligaments were moving. And he was really close to us.
Seemed like he was high as fuck on something.
I thought more of the fact that like he was going to be dancing, getting into his groove, and he'd like elbow me in the face. Because there was a girl that was shorter than me that came up to his fucking elbow standing. And like
he got clocked.
Yeah, and she didn't flinch. She didn't fucking move an inch. I was like, girl, you gonna get hit with an elbow.
And that's what I mean. Like, I'm sorry.
But that doesn't deserve an axe to the face, Tim.
I didn't have an axe. I had a fist. And you would have got clocked in the fucking head if he elbowed you in the face, by the way. Because don't be a fucking dipshit.
I want Tim to start a bar fight for me.
Well, it would have. It wouldn't have started a fight. I would have knocked his ass out and it would have been over.
Because also remember when we were first started dating over the summer and some guy was full on flirting with me and I had no fucking idea. And then he came up to Tim. He's like, hey, man, I'm really sorry. I was flirting with your girl. I had no idea you 2 were together.
Yeah. That was
he apologized for
that fucking guy that wouldn't leave me alone afterwards either. Yeah. And we just basically
kind of a classy move, at least based off that one piece of information.
Yeah, at least he apologized. Yeah. But like, I think if anything, that just shows how blind I am to this shit. That like, I had no idea this guy was flirting with me, and I was having a full on conversation. He probably thought I was flirting back, and I was just like, oh my god, yeah, we're having such a good time, and with all my friends.
Again, I say this is why I don't leave my house and why I don't talk to people
because they might be flirting with you.
They might be flirting with me or trying to stab me with a bottle,
and you don't have an axe readily at hand.
Listen,
at least not a good
fuck
enough
off
size
with the
one.
axe. You want somebody like me in your corner because I'm not afraid to axe nobody.
Absolutely, but an axe.
Oh my god, I'm not sure what she's wrapped
He's not
up
afraid
on.
to axe on his decisions.
Yeah, no, I'm not that I don't know.
This is taking a very different turn conversationally as well.
Yeah, it's turned into essentially violence
like
and
self-defense
being prepared. Yeah. But yeah, go take some boxing lessons. That's what I did.
I would love to take
Krav Maga, judo, karate.
Self-defense. I would love to take a self-defense class.
Take kickboxing.
No.
Why not?
That seems like a lot of like
judo.
Self-defense in general is a lot of work, by the way. I took capoeira, which is martial art, and I vomited my literal first training session. Vomited. It's a lot of work.
Well, I'm talking about self-defense. It's like 1-2 quick punches.
Okay.
Oh, you're just saying like a simple self-defense training.
Yeah, like just tactics of like, if I were to be attacked from behind, like here's a move that you can use.
Like how to disarm a gun, how to trip someone if you need to.
Baby, I'm not looking for a hobby, okay? I'm not looking to get into kickboxing. I'm just like, I want to take like a self-defense class, learn some cool things where I can like.
So you and I are going to start boxing.
Flat palm your nose, like how they did in Miss Congeniality.
Right up the top.
Like that.
Yeah.
And kick.
I think those sound effects were the ones in the movie.
Yeah, right.
In Miss Congeniality, yeah.
Yeah, so this has been our podcast. That's been a whole mixed bag of just.
We just like to talk.
Axing people,
I'm gonna title
violence.
this one "Mixed Bag Macabre."
That's a good one.
Yeah, an old fashioned.
Our title should be more funnier.
No, yeah, they should. I'm just not. Don't bother because I'm lazy.
You fuck.
That's fine.
I like descriptive, but yeah, they should be more humorous as well. So we'll start with "Mixed Bag Macabre."
That's a good one. Is that it? Are we done?
I think we're done. Yeah, this has been
Pull me out of the oven.
An interesting episode.
Okay.
Does anybody else miss getting high? I've been missing getting high lately.
No, I've never really enjoyed it other than like to smoke a bowl before I go to bed,
It's been a while.
to be honest, because I get paranoid when I'm stoned and like
I'm
awake.
not a fan personally.
If you
I'm not a fan personally.
if you want to get stoned and sit in the house for 18 hours, I'm totally down. If you want to get high and do something, fuck no.
Yeah.
That's when my anxiety just goes through the roof.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't mind like smoking a bowl like an hour before I'm going to bed because it helps me sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I've got sleep problems.
Me too.
But
We should look into like CBD oils or something.
I don't think they work.
It doesn't hurt to try.
Have you tried? I've
No.
heard wonderful things
Yeah, I have
I've-
too.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but negative things. So I guess it's just based on
per person, which
Yeah.
makes sense.
I need to do something.
But-
To like sleep.
melatonin.
Melatonin's good.
I'll melatonin that ass. All right.
Oh,
Thanks
all right.
everybody for listening to our podcast.
Thanks. Bye.
We'll be talking to you later.
Oh,
Bye.
bye.
Rocksteady Trio. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, buddy. Hope you find your dad.